Hey everybody, welcome to Before College TV Live. Today I'm really excited to have a special guest who I've gotten to know over the years, working with her, visiting her school, really getting a sense of what life is like in Georgia in high school. And I am also grateful because she's a parent. And the other day we were just talking about what it's like to deal with being a parent during COVID and supporting learning. I have three kids, and it's been a real challenge. Each one has their own issues and obstacles. And as a parent, I want to be helpful, but at the same time, I don't want to be annoying. But as Kim and I were just talking before, and we'll get into this, annoying is okay. But it's a question of how do you support your kids learning, and how can you help them to learn these skills that are like college level school skills. It's really crazy what's expected of them. So I wanted to give you some tips and to bring somebody on who is really in the middle of it, who is in the thick of it professionally, also personally. And with that, I would like to welcome Kim Premley. Hi, Kim. It's great to have you.
Hi there. It's great to be here this morning. Thank you so much.
You're just so much fun to talk to. I mean, we work together professionally, and we've been talking about doing some other work, and we check in probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 times a year.
Mhm.
And you always, I just always find that you have something of value and insight. And I just think you're terrific. So I'm just so grateful you can take a couple minutes out of your day
Well,
to,
thank you.
to be able to visit with us. So give me a sense and give everybody a sense, because one of the things that I wanted to really help parents understand is that there are exceptional students, bright students, really intelligent students, high achieving students from all different backgrounds, going to all different types of schools, who are struggling. And I know that you were mentioning that when we were talking privately. Can you shine a light a little bit on just what
Sure.
students are dealing with?
Sure. I mean, our students and our children, right? They're learning in ways that they've never been required to learn, or starting as of last March, the learning has become through a computer screen primarily, and therefore can be seen or can be digested very passively. So in my current setting, professionally, I have students in our building. I have students who elect to stay home virtually full time. And so our students right now are in a hybrid model. So those who are learning with us at school rotate on and off campus every 2 days. And while that's happening, we still have students in those classes who are at home virtually full time. In my home, I have my son and my daughter. She's in college, and my son's in sixth grade, and he is learning full time virtually at home. That's the only option that he has. So, what I've been, or understanding on both sides, personally and professionally, is that a lot of what we're asking students to do beyond the in the moment learning is to work as we might be working professionally, keeping up with calendars, calendarizing a lot, scheduling out, making sure that all of the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And
Right.
what I find, every child's different. My older child, um, she has perfected right that skill, those skills, the many skills that is required. My 11-year-old, he has needed some real brush up and some real instruction from me about how to be engaged when the learning is largely passive, and how to make sure that you know what's going on, what's expected of you when something is due. And that's been a work in progress since school started here in Atlanta back in August.
Yeah, and this is the part where I know that we were talking. I don't know how much I'm allowed to share. I don't think my kid's going to be too upset because, like, there's that boundary of like, I didn't
Sure.
check with him to make sure that I'm allowed to share this stuff. So I hope I can. But
Yeah, well, me too.
okay, so good. So we're both potentially violating our kids' trust for the sake of others, for the
Right.
benefit of others.
Yeah.
There's been teachers who have been sending us notes, and when they send us these notes about a missing homework assignment or
Mhm.
something
Mhm.
that he should have done, and then I talk to him, and sometimes his answer is like, I turned it in
Yeah.
and I just didn't let them know, and it's in my box, and I need to send them an email. And there's always a story
Right.
behind it.
That's right.
And my story is like a teacher shouldn't be sending me email. It's
That's
like
what I tell my own kids. I don't wanna get emails like that, right?
right. It's like I don't need to hear from a teacher. Then when a teacher
Mhm.
email, and our teachers are terrific, they're wonderful
They're
teachers.
working so hard.
They're working so hard. But then my thought is, why are you emailing me? Like honestly, I've got a
Yeah,
middle schooler, and it's like I don't want to know about this. Like I only want to
right.
know. So like, are you letting my kid know? So then I tell my kid, I'm like, hey, you know, did anybody email you first? I said, because I want to talk to your teacher. And I'm very nice about it.
For sure.
Usually at the end of the day, I'm a little spent. And I don't have patience for this. And then I say, I need you to make sure that you are corresponding. I said, I'm going to email
Mhm,
your teacher and ask your teacher to email you first.
mhm.
Understanding teachers do so much. And then he says, oh, yeah, you don't have to do that because they already emailed me. They
Right.
already told me. Right.
Asking questions is that's the number one strategy, I would say, is you've got to ask questions of your own child. And a lot of times those answers do not add up. And so you keep asking questions. And then ultimately you start to see the gaps. The gaps are there, right? And so, absolutely. I mean, I asked my son to please email his teachers and copy me, right?
Oh, okay.
And so that I'm informed, and my hope is that they'll respond to all, and then I get a little follow up, right?
Right.
When I email a teacher, I copy my son or I put him in the two along with the teacher.
Okay.
Um, and my hope is that at 11, I can start backing away from the email because then they can just correspond once he's got the skills that I feel like he needs to develop. Once he has them, then I'd like to step away, but I like you do not want to be the conduit of communication. I just want to be in the know.
Right, because I
And
mean, that's what we've talked about is how can we support our kids without being the one who is facilitating everything.
Mhm,
The idea
mhm,
is to engage to a point where we can empower
right.
and give them those life skills. And I know that you also being a principal prior to being academic dean,
Mhm,
you oversaw this and the just the amount of work that teachers need to do as well and the amount of corresponding and the
right.
expectations. So really having that balance. So we were talking about this and you had a wonderful strategy. You told me that when you go home after work,
Mhm.
after working a long day,
And I
you
do this at work too.
oh,
Yeah.
you do this
A
at
lot of
work
what I
too?
do at work. Mhm.
Oh, so you'll like FaceTime him or or you do this at work with other students.
With other students and parents, yes. And so I uncovered after letting my son go about 6 weeks, thinking that school was going well because he's never had issues in school. I uncovered that we had a list of missing things and things weren't getting turned in, and it was a surprise. So I thought, well, we've got to address this. So I knew that the learning was largely passive in that he was on his computer, he was in his classes and present, but when those classes ended later in the day, I uncovered he really wasn't doing much. So it wasn't so my explanation and discussion with him was, just being present for the time that your teachers are with you is not going to be enough to be successful. And that would be the case whether you were virtual or face to face, right? But when you're face to face, a lot of work gets turned in the classroom, right? Homework is due in the classroom physically, and he's never had an issue. But add in the virtual and the passive learning, and then the, oh yeah, by the way, you go to this app and do this, and then go back to Google Classroom and put in a code and submit that to get credit for having done the app work. And it was a lot of steps, right? So I wanted to find a way to break down the steps and engage him so that he wasn't passively just like, oh yeah, that's due, I've got to do that. And then it didn't happen, just didn't happen.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I brought it home, wanted to address it. The tool that I use has been working, but with an 11-year-old, it takes time. I'm not gradually releasing as quickly as I would have liked,
Right.
but it's working. And so I've used it and introduced it to some of my students here and some parents, and just said, hey, I I'm being real. This is happening in my own home. I know this is really difficult. Here's a technique and a strategy that I've adopted. It allows me to check in with my son every night or every
Right.
other day, depending on how much is needed. Know that he's checked in, he's on top of what he needs to do, and encourage some of my students and our parents here to try it. And by and large, I mean, it's not foolproof, right? It's not a
Right.
silver bullet. It's work that you do, and it's good work.
Well, we're going to share it in just a second, and I want to walk other people who are watching this through it. But I wanted to show you something, and everybody who's watching something. So this is. Let's see if I can get this close. See this?
Yeah,
This is my kid's schedule. This is what he sees when he logs on virtually every single day. Like
that is overwhelming.
like this is it. This is what he's looking at. And I took a picture because I was just like, when we sat down, and we sat down after you and I talked,
Hmm.
and I looked and my jaw dropped.
Hmm.
And then he walked me through, and teachers are doing an amazing job, and
They are.
administrators are doing an amazing job. But when they get the Zoom link, then there's the assignment link, and then
Hmm.
there's the link to go to this particular page to do the work, and then the link to do this particular
Hmm.
page. And like, not an exaggeration, he's probably visiting anywhere from 12 to
Yeah,
20 different locations while having to engage,
right.
while having to do the work that he would do in the classroom that would be
Hmm.
checked, turning in that work that needs to be done in the classroom as if it's an assignment, being able to manage that and then being
Hmm.
held accountable. And
Yeah,
this is a 12-year-old. This is college level work. Like, this is something that, and my daughter, who's a freshman in high school, dealing with this as well.
sure. It's
My
a lot. It's just, it does feel, I know teachers are overwhelmed, students are overwhelmed, parents are overwhelmed. Funny story is that I'm going through a reno in our kitchen, and my husband was like asking me to sort of like engage in it. And I'm like, I can't. Like, I come home from work and we're doing work,
Right,
and I'm kind of spent, like I need you to own the kitchen, and I'll do the school. I'll do the school stuff, you do the kitchen stuff. Like,
right.
that's the way we need to split it up right now. And so, I it's overwhelming. And so I'm hoping this helps break it down.
Yeah. So let's get into this. So you shared this with me, and then you were kind enough to share this on a Google Doc. And I know that in a perfect world, we have the notebooks, it's done in a notebook.
Right.
So, you know what, instead of me introducing this, just walk us through, as a parent, what we can do
Sure.
to help support our student who's learning, and make sure that they can stay organized and get things done.
Sure. So I needed a way to kind of understand what was happening day to day in my son's classes, and how would he know, how did he know whether he had an assignment due, what was homework versus classwork. And so, I needed to get a handle on it. And so what we do in my house is that he has a physical notebook for each class, a physical one.
We show
And
that.
so he has seven classes, he has seven notebooks. And so every day, in his science notebook, he will have a daily entry. And when he gets after, as soon as he has breakfast in the morning, he sets up his notebooks for the day. So the setup of the notebook is turn the page from yesterday and write down the following: date, concept, classwork, homework, and class notes. He writes those down on
Let
a
me
new
interrupt you. I have a
paper in
question.
each of his classes for that
Oh,
day.
so this is done in the morning before school?
It is. Sometimes if he had a light homework night, I might say, get your notebook set up for tomorrow,
So
right?
he has to get up in time to eat breakfast,
Mhm.
because this is throwing a wrench in my system, because my
Okay.
kid barely gets up in time, runs downstairs, can't even do like his regular things. But so you block out
Well,
about how much time before school starts?
yeah, well, look, so every kid's different, right?
Yeah.
So my son, his internal clock is about 7 o'clock,
Ooh, okay.
right? And so I'm lucky, and I get that, right? Also, in middle school, they start a little later. So for him, his first class doesn't start till about 9 o'clock,
Okay.
right? So if your student has early classes, 7:30, you might do your notebook setup. That might be the last thing you do, which is a great accomplishment because it doesn't take but 5 minutes to do 4 or 5 classes of setup, and you just are writing down date, concept, classwork, homework, and class notes.
Okay.
Right?
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. So, it was just the timing of it because I'm like not only listening to this as someone who wants to share this, but as a parent who's like, "Oh no, Kim, I did it wrong. We've been doing it after school.
That's
I'm
fine.
screwing this up." Right? And we also did it. Okay, I'm talking too much. Sometimes
No,
I
that's okay. There is, listen, this is I just needed a way. This is a way that I found. So
so
as,
just
as
without
with
me
most,
interrupting you anymore,
it's
I'm
fine.
not gonna I want it to be so clean. Just tell parents out there what to do and
Right.
walk through without me interrupting you.
So I instructed my son every day, you're going to, on a fresh sheet of paper for each class, you're going to write down these things: date, concept, classwork, homework, class notes. And when you're in class, when class is meeting, I need you to be able to identify what was the main target of learning that day. That's the concept, right? So my example here is photosynthesis. Now, I prefer my son to handwrite this stuff. So he's not using his computer. He's actually writing notes physically on a piece of paper during class. And then we go over it every night together. So once he's identified the concept, they're probably working on an activity in class. That's the class work. Okay. And I need to know, was that class work something that's due? Did you need to turn something in? What exactly was the class notes? Because I was finding there were assignments missing from work that was done in class, and assignments missing from work that was supposed to be homework,
Mm.
right? So it was important for me that he differentiate between what was classwork and what was homework.
Mhm.
Okay. And so then hopefully through the course of the learning, right, the teacher has either assigned some homework or follow up that happens from the classwork related to the concept. And I've asked my son to note that. So what homework is due that week? A lot of his teachers use Google Classroom, and so I can see with him very easily what is due. But sometimes it takes a little digging. So I'll talk about that in just a second.
Yeah.
And then I ask him to take class notes. Now, those class notes are not always up to what I would expect, right? And so I make sure that he tried to make a couple of entries on what was actually discussed in the class, what notes the teacher was giving,
Mhm.
that he actually writes them down to sort of construct some of that meaning internally. So I've just used the topic of photosynthesis and work that you might do in a classroom in the middle school or high school level with photosynthesis. So this is just a representation of what you might
Sure.
want to see, right? So what I do with the entries every day is that when we get home, and sometimes it's before practice, before dinner, sometimes it's not until much later in the evening. It's when we have time, right? So instead of saying in my house, "What'd you do today?" "Oh, nothing." "What'd you learn?" It has to be a much more specific response. So I find that asking questions is the best way to, understand if there are gaps, all right, or if we're missing some things. So, in addition to looking at the daily entries, I'll ask questions about, I'll say, so it looks like you did a flow chart in Google Classroom and you turned that in. And I'll say, so can you show me where you did that? And he'll show me. You see, it says submitted or resubmit or waiting for grade. And I can see that in Google Classroom. So to me, that's like, okay, that's done, right? Uh,
Right.
if I don't see that, then I'm like, well, let's go into the stream. I need to see the work for, the what the teacher has put in the stream for classwork, and I'll be looking for things. A lot of times I found my son could give answers on the surface that seemed okay, but if I did just a little bit of digging under the surface, it didn't quite make sense. And that's where I could see the gaps. So what I do is sit down, go through the daily entries, and at the same time, have him walk me through where those assignments are ultimately going to be turned in or where they are turned in now so that I can confirm that it's done. My goal for him is that over the next few weeks, I could do this maybe every other night, every 2 to 3 nights, once a week. And then I don't have to do it, but maybe once a month, right? That would be my goal for him at 11, is that as we move through the semester, there's a gradual release. He's got the tools, he knows the expectation, that I'm gonna sit with him, ask questions, and also double check on those. Notice how we haven't mentioned I'm checking any sort of grading system, right? Where grades are input.
Right.
Me, I like to I'm kind of old school in the fact that when I was in school, my parents only saw grades every 6 weeks. I knew exactly what the expectation was. When those grades came home, they better be A's and B's, right? That was the expectation that I grew up with.
Yeah.
And I haven't really diverted from that in my own children because I do think they do need time. And they don't need the daily, like, I saw that you didn't turn in an assignment, right? Because what that does is if you're checking grades all the time, every day, and I see it all the time. Parents will check grades, they text, um, you lost your phone. I saw that you had a bad grade, right? They're getting that in the middle of the school day. It's creating a lot of anxiety. It distracts from the learning environment, right? There, to me, again, a much better way to do it is to sit together in on every 3 weeks or every 6 weeks. And after you've been doing the daily entries and looking through Google Classroom, sit together every 3 to 6 weeks
Yeah.
and look at the grade report and ask questions. This test seems really low. What happened here? You know, well, I see you didn't do some of your homework leading up to that test. You see why it's so important to do homework because that helps you prepare for the exams. So those are some of the really good conversations. And I think, as annoying as it might be, I think secretly my son is probably very grateful that I will take the time, knowing that am in schools all day, dealing with academic issues and helping teachers and students, achieve in teaching and learning. I think secretly he probably appreciates that I'm going to take the time because it's important. Right.
Yeah.
And I don't want a quick look at grades. That's not You're not getting into root cause or fixing any problems unless you sit down and have a dialogue and ask questions and dig in.
Let me ask you the timepiece. I know that there's probably people watching and, they hear you say, to take the time to do this. And you're somebody who, you're busy. You got a lot
Mhm,
going on a daily basis when you're going through this and starting this
mhm.
process. How much time does it take
Sure.
for the student and how much time does it take for a parent who wants to support the student?
I think if you really dedicate 15 minutes,
That's it.
honestly, I think you can get it done in 15 minutes. Now, some of the answers to your questions, right, or some of the digging may require some more follow-up,
Yeah.
right, for your child. But I think a good 15-minute conversation of, let's get your notebooks out, let's sit in front of the computer, and let's walk me through the highlights of your day, classwork, homework, notes. And if I'm seeing what I want to see, it may take 15 minutes, right?
Right.
When you
That's
don't
great.
see what you want to see, it might take a little bit longer. But the idea is, I'm always one of those, this mom's not going to break. Like, we're going to do this until I feel like it's ingrained in you. And so it's not one of those things I'm going to forget about. This is important. I need to teach you some skills and some time management and how to make your own meaning out of learning. So that he can be more active. And I think he realizes, she's not going to give up on me. Right.
Yeah.
So I need to come and meet her halfway. And that's what I tell my own students is like, your teachers aren't going to give up on you. I'm not giving up on you. We're more willing to meet you more than halfway. We just need you to meet us there.
Yeah. Well, it's a great tool. It's a great technique. I started doing it and I was amazed at how I was able to see just what my child's going through,
Mhm.
what the process is to even get the information that we're looking to discover and just to see and the empathy and
Mhm.
compassion that I have now for what he's doing and what students are doing is
Yeah.
something that that the byproduct of this is I just cannot believe how much they're doing
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
how amazing that is. So that's
And
been
these skills are
incredible.
going to serve them. Think about it. They're learning these executive functioning skills now
Yeah.
at a much younger age, and they're going to come up with even better ways to solve problems, right? Because of this is real critical thinking, right?
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
And it's difficult and it's hard, and what we're going through is really, really difficult. And so, I always come from a place of, okay, just let me try to make it a little bit better of an experience, right? The experience isn't great, but how can we make it a little bit better? And I do find sometimes there's a sense of like, it's so difficult. Like, can we just and give them a break? And it's not to me about giving a break. It's about finding a way through, right? And if what you were doing before wasn't working, just try something else. Try something else and see if that works.
Yeah. I'm just so grateful for your wisdom and for the tools. And I know this is going to help so many parents. I know
Oh,
it's
me
already
too.
helping me. Yeah, and I'm going to share this with others and the framework. One last question for you. If you go through this and you have a
Mhm,
child who's struggling and really not achieving at the level that
mhm,
they're used to achieving, you're a parent who wants to engage your child. They kind of put up those walls because we know how that can be, where they may not be as interested and they might not want to open things up. And it might be a
mhm,
tug of war when it comes to any resources within the school or
mhm,
additional resources to help students to be more efficient with time management and those
mhm.
executive skills without, and this is the other thing, without a student starting to doubt their own abilities and
Right.
understanding you're learning an entirely new skill. It's like learning how to throw with your left hand if you're a righty. You can
Mhm.
still be a great athlete. You just need to learn these skills. So, are there any recommendations, any outside services or things that a parent can do to help
Well,
if
the first thing is, engage the teacher. I think I know our teachers are working really hard, and they are caring, and they really sometimes don't know. I think my son's teachers were like, "Well, he's in class every day, and he seems to be, real positive and participating." And I just said, "Well, behind that brave face." He's really just struggling to fit it all in or to figure out where to start. And so I would first, your teachers are a great resource. Your counselors in your school, have a wealth of resources, and they can help you understand if what your student is going through is relatively normal or whether something that it needs a little more attention or more resources, and they can help with those. But I would just say by and large, it's been really difficult. And so this struggle is real and it's normal. And we can certainly work through it. And there will be cases where you might need more resources, but I would first turn to your teachers and your counselor. The counselor can provide any sort of mental wellness support and guidance that you might have, whether it be in school or whether it be beyond school.
Right. Well, that's great. So they can direct you to local resources and
Mhm,
assess if this is normal or if your child needs additional help and
mhm,
support. And as a parent, it's kind of a helpless feeling to see
mhm.
my kid want to be really successful and not always know how to do that and what to do.
Yeah.
So helping me to know how to be involved and helping
Yeah.
other parents to know what they can do is just a wonderful gift. And I'm just so grateful for that. Kim, I just want to thank you again. And you're not only full of so much wisdom and so helpful, I appreciate the friendship and helping me
Absolutely.
to be
Well,
a
you're
better
too
parent.
kind.
What's that?
You're too kind.
Oh,
I really enjoy it. Great conversations always. So
yeah, well, likewise. And for anybody else who has questions about this or wants to get more tips and watch more videos, check out Before College TV. And I want to thank him again. And I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon. And we're grateful to be here and to be in your corner. Thanks so much.
take care.
Thanks.